Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and I'm here to help you find your best path to your best emotional and physical health. So if you like what you hear, don't be afraid to subscribe and get notification for new videos as they come out. Also, please click on the links below and get your 5 free tips on how to find your path to best emotional physical health overall. So let's just jump into today's topic. We've been talking about in this series on changing eating habits and lifestyle modifications for weight loss or just general overall health. And I wanted to get into what we do with triggers and dealing with emotional triggers. So dealing with emotional triggers when we're eating can be a little bit challenging because like in drugs, if people are using drugs or alcohol, sobriety is an option where you totally are abstinent. That is not an option with food. We cannot go without food. So learning to manage our triggers and our emotional issues, especially if we are the type that feeds those triggers with food and sugar to manage them, to do something completely different can be a little bit of a challenge. So let's talk a little bit about how we might look at that. This is best helped with a cognitive behavioral perspective, and I'll kind of explain what that is as we go along. But we're going to look at our overall, what the situation is. Sometimes this is called the trigger or the activating event that makes us feel and think a certain way. So once those things kind of occur, then we have to kind of figure out what falls out from them and then what our response is. So for some of us, if it's eating, it could be anything that we're faced with as a situation. But sometimes when people are young, they start learning certain messages about food, like maybe they've left their food on their plate and their parent is going to tell them that they need to clean their plate because there's starving children in Africa or people that don't have enough food and that they should be grateful for that. Then after the situation is brought to light, then we have to kind of look at, okay, what is our interpretation or our belief? So when we're young, we don't necessarily have one of those, and those are kind of developed over time based on the influence of our environment, i.e. our parents most of the time. But you can carry those with you throughout your life. So these things can either be negative or positive. So when we go back to the example of, you left food on your plate, you later on as an adult may feel that you are wasteful if you do that, or you are not considering others, those kinds of things. That might be your underlying belief regarding leaving food on the plate. So after that, you kind of have that underlying belief kind of will help bring up our body's response or our emotion, kind of what is going on. And the benefit of kind of looking through one of these situations is to actually kind of analyze that and dig down. And when you start putting yourself in the situation and thinking about what your underlying beliefs are, you have a much better chance of kind of activating the thoughts and feelings that go along with them so you can actually do something with them. Because a lot of the times those things happen really, really quickly, and we don't even realize they're going on until we slow down and reflect a little bit. So you've considered, or you're reviewing, this is when you're managing an emotional trigger, you review the situation, as in our last video where you're talking about problem solving some of the things, and identifying your underlying belief about the situation, whatever that might be. And then you're going to start looking at your overall physical response and the emotion that's coming up. And that can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes to figure out what you're actually feeling. It might be guilt if you're being told to clean your plate because other people are hungry, that kind of thing. It might be pressure. It might be shame. It might be being controlled. All of that can be part of the overall emotional picture and leave you feeling very frustrated. If we're like most people, we're very good at pushing our feelings down and we don't always address them or kind of realize what they are. So sometimes it takes a minute to sit with them to actually get them to come to the surface. So after you've identified those 3 things, your next step is to identify your overall thought process, and your behavioral response. So you can figure out, okay, am I going to eat to manage make this feeling go away, however I want to do it? Or am I going to do something different? Because typically, if your old response pattern is to eat or do something like that, or do something that's a little bit self-destructive, we have to figure out what the alternative behavior is. So once you've figured out what your response is, then you can say, well, how do I want to be different? Okay. So that overall pattern, once you've kind of looked at it and figured out, okay, what can I change in this to change the overall response? There's a couple of ways we can tackle that. So the very first one is to challenge that belief or that thought process about your whatever it is, that you are a bad person because you didn't eat all your food or whatever it might be. So then you're going to challenge that belief and you're going to ask yourself, is this 100% true all of the time? And then identify some of the evidence for and against that belief. 9 times out of 10, the belief is just a story that we've made up in our heads based on what we've been told by somebody else. And that's not, a lot of times, not true. Like if you've been told, oh, you're a selfish person because you wasted food that other people could have had, when the reality is other people aren't going to have had that food. It doesn't matter. Unless there's homeless people on your porch you could have given it to. That's just not a reality and not normal. So you can tell yourself that you're not a selfish person because you give to people in other ways, or whatever the actual scenario might be. The other way that we can deal with some of these things is actually managing the emotion itself. So this can work for trying to figure out what your actual emotion is regarding this event. And managing it can be a little bit different because you can do it a couple different ways. One of the ones that I like best is actually to sit with it for a little bit to make sure you figure out what it is and what your emotion actually means to you, whether or not it's more than one or just the one or whatever. You need to sit with it and kind of feel like it will move through your body and the energy will dissipate. So you have to kind of accept the emotion for what it is. And they're not, I like to tell people, emotions aren't negative or positive. They're just emotions. They're all important. And we can't say, well, I don't want to have these negative emotions and I only want to have positive emotions. Life just doesn't work that way. So we want to make sure that we kind of learn to sit with all of our emotions regardless of what they are. So one of the ways we can kind of do that in a behavioral way is meditate. Okay, so you sit with the emotion and you just kind of notice it and don't judge, which is hard because we're all humans and we tend to want to judge things. Another way is to kind of identify the emotion a little bit more. Drink water might be one way to do it, especially if you want to eat in general, or take a walk and do something a little bit different. Sometimes these things can be a challenge if you're in a place like at work or you're kind of in a spot where you can't manage some of those things, but you can always take a deep breath and sit with the emotion for a second. And just if you're like in a conversation with somebody, you just tell them, hold on a second, I just need to take a moment, and that's okay. And people should respect that for you. So some of the most common emotional triggers that we find are boredom. Boredom is emotion, believe it or not, okay? So a lot of people will tell me they eat when they're bored because they don't know what else to do. And there is an underlying thought to that. Maybe the thought is, I'm lazy because I don't have anything to do. Or the thought is, I'm not productive, or whatever that might be. There is a thought under that. And then they want to eat to kind of manage that. That's kind of a different one because you need to fill that time with something such as a skill or learning a skill or developing a hobby or doing something different, reading, exercise, any of those things. I don't know that I've ever been bored in my entire life for the most part because people will tell you, the people that know me really well are like, oh, you always have to be busy. It's like, well, yeah, isn't there always interesting things to do? I'm always having something to read or something to work on or all of that. So boredom, I think, is one of the easiest ones to deal with. But you have to sometimes sit down and think about what would I like to do and what would I like to do differently. Another one is rewarding. A lot of people they feel, or they've turned food into a reward. So they're like, okay, so something good happened, or I did something, so therefore I should be able to have that ice cream or that piece of pie or whatever. And sometimes you have to figure out, okay, there is other ways to reward yourself, and you have to be kind of conscious of that. Food is just easy, so it's just right there. Oh, I'm going to buy a candy bar or this treat that I haven't had in a while. Where it takes a little more effort to do some of the rewards that actually might actually be a little more rewarding, like setting a spa day, or buying yourself some clothes that you wanted, or reading a book, or buying something for one of your hobbies. For me, I tend to keep like a wish list of things that I want that I won't let myself spend money on right now. So then when I've accomplished my goals or whatever, then I will go ahead and I will purchase something that I've been waiting for. So that kind of gives me an alternative to, having something like a piece of pie or ice cream or whatever it is that might be available. So if you have any questions about that, please comment, and I'll be more than happy to address those. We're looking forward to hopefully having a question and answer session so people can ask some of the questions that they need answered and kind of provide some more guidance on moving forward. If you think you're in need of some personal coaching regarding changing these eating habits and managing some emotional stuff that's related to your eating, please just connect with me on the website and sign up for a session, and we'll go ahead and get that worked out for you. So again, everybody have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget your free tips on the link below. Wait for a few days until we get our next video. So looking forward to it. If you have any questions, again, please let me know. Have a great day.